Hey guys, it's hump day. Thank goodness. We're getting halfway through this week already. I hope you're staying healthy and I hope you're working hard. Okay, so today we are going to go ahead and look at both of the texts that we used this week. We're going to do it across genres, just like we did last week where we did with the fictional story and the poem. This week we're going to do it with the fictional text and the informational text. So remember, with the fictional text, we looked at the characters, the major character, and made the connections. We looked at the events, the problem and solution, and made the connections. And then we looked at the theme, which is the lesson learned, and we made connections, and then author's purpose, why the author wrote it, and made connections as well. And then also, with our informational texts, we don't have characters because characters are only fictional, but we do have people and animals sometimes. So if you had people or animals, you were to describe those people and the animals and make those connections. The events of the story, how it played out, describe those. You were supposed to do that yesterday and make those connections. And then in central or main idea, what is the text mostly about? And then make your connection, and again, author's purpose. Why did the author write the story? And again, make your connection. So I used Lost and Found for making connections with informational texts, and then I used Building a Fire for my fictional texts. And so I decided I was going to combine these two, and we're going to do across genres and compare the different connections we've made. So I have this graphic organizer that helps me combine both the fictional and the informational. So making connections across text, fictional story, and informational text is your title of your graphic organizer. So the title of the fictional story is Building a Fire, and the informational text is Lost and Found. So I'm going to take my fictional story, Building a Fire, and compare, or put my thoughts down here, and then my informational text and put my thoughts down here. And then I'm going to break it down based on each item. So the first one is the character fictional story was Mr. Griffin. He was determined to teach them to build a fire using friction. And that was what his part of the story was about. The people and animals in the informational text, well, there wasn't any people or animal in the text, but it was about the reader and teaching the reader how to survive in the wild. So the differences and the similarities are over here. So both of them were teaching how to do something. This one taught the reader how to never give up and to come prepared. But this one taught them how to survive in the wild. So that's how the characters, he taught something and the author taught something. So that's how the characters are the same. But this is a fiction story and this is an informational story, and so there's no character in the informational story, and there's not a whole lot to compare in terms of that, but that's the difference. But there are similarities in that both the author and Mr. Griffin were trying to teach something. In the events, for the fictional story, Building a Fire, the problem was that he couldn't build a fire using the two sticks and rubbing them together, so instead he used matches. He still taught them friction, but he didn't use the two sticks, he used the matches. So that was his problem and solution. In the events of Lost and Found, it was just a step-by-step guide on how to survive in the wild if you were lost. So the similarities that we found was that fire was a topic. Building a fire or using a fire was part of the topic. So in the events, that was kind of cool. And they were both outside. This story was about them at the campfire, and this story was about if you get lost outside. So that was something that was similar. But again, this is a fictional story, not real, and this is an informational text, and it's just giving you a bunch of information. So that was kind of the differences in the events. There's always going to be a major difference between fictional events and informational events. Okay, so the theme in the fictional story was never give up and come prepared. Those were two of the lessons that I think were taught. And the main idea for the informational text was how to survive in the wild if you get lost. The similarities were both required to never give up, to be prepared. So this one, never give up and be prepared, was the lesson. And in this one, same thing. They wanted you to never give up. If you get lost in the wild, this is what you need to do to survive. So don't give up. And then also maybe you should be prepared if you go out in the wild. So both of those had kind of something similar like that. The difference is there's no theme in the informational text, it's just information, and then there's no central idea in the fiction like there is in the informational. So there's a main idea sometimes in fiction, but we didn't really get into that this year. But that's something you will learn in the future. The author's purpose is tell me what the author's purpose was in each text, why you think that way, and provide evidence from the text. So I'd already provided evidence from the text, and you can do the same thing as well, but the fictional story was meant to entertain us and to teach us a lesson, and the informational text was to inform us on how to survive in the wild if we get lost. So the similarities is they both taught us a lesson. The author taught us a lesson in this fictional story, and the author taught us a lesson in the informational text. But one was more fun, and one was more informative. So that's how you compare a fiction story and an informational text. It's not gonna mesh as well as a poem did and the fictional story did last week, because both of them were fiction. This is two completely different genres. One is a fiction, one's informational. One is made up and one is real. So it's kind of difficult, but it can be done. And I tried to find text that would help you be able to make those connections. So just make sure that while you are comparing your fictional story and your informational text is that you're remembering all four of the different items you need to analyze, and then remember the connections that you've already made Monday and Tuesday of this week in regards to each story you were given. When you go to submit your assignment, you can either complete the graphic organizer and submit it, or you can choose to do the second option. Just make sure you send it to me somehow. I need to know that you've done it. Or you can just send me a message, or you can just hit submit on the assignment, and I will know that you have completed it and sent it to me in some other form. So guys, I hope you are working hard, staying healthy. Get outside and get some energy out. Make sure you're being respectful to your parents. All right, guys, miss y'all. Take care.